Patriot Mom007 here. And
I love that.
Lezley is really one of our friends who's very integrally a part of Arizona in many different ways. Lezley does some different things that I hadn't done before in Arizona, and I'm learning a lot from her. Actually, it's more on the legal side of things, and there's a lot to be said for that, and there's a lot of information. So let's start by thanking you to come out to meet me today.
You're so sweet. Thank you so much for even having me.
All to do with the Board of Supervisors in Maricopa County. That's where we live here. For those of you who don't know, it's one of the largest, maybe fifth largest in the nation, I think. Fourth largest in the nation. We have a lot of problems here. Like I think a lot of Board of Supervisors do these days. I think a lot of agencies in the government do these days. Ours is unique because Arizona's a hotbed state in general.
Yes.
We have illegal immigration coming out of our ears, the illegal entrance coming pouring across the border. I recently talked to Mark Lamb. We're still between 10 and 15,000 a day across Arizona. Of course, we have Katie Hobbs, who will never shut that down. We have agencies running rogue for our elections, as we know the last two elections. We have 24 coming up, so we need to look out for that. That's always an ongoing issue. Then we have our Board of Supervisors. I didn't know how much they're in charge of. More than people know. I have no idea. So I've been going to these meetings. You have a little podcast. I don't want to neglect that. It's called
It Is Our Duty.
And it is our duty.
It is our duty.
That's why we do what we do.
That's right.
And so you are a citizen journalist anyway, so you're researching a lot. You're always checking things out.
Yes.
And then you're a citizen and you're a mom. So as I am too. So this for our generations ahead, our kids, that's why I do that. That's right. What are we leaving
for the children is why I am doing this. Even though I have to put a little shout out there for some of these people that come down there. In LDA, we've got Florence. She's out there consistently. And she gets up there behind that little podium. She even wrote a little book on the Dominion machines. Oh. I mean, so age is never a limitation. It's all right here.
But this comes we'll be those little sweet ladies. Yeah, we're going to have our canes and our walkers for sure. Well, we probably will be those ones. But
I'm good with that.
The kids are going to eventually be taking over for us, and we are trying to teach them really right and wrong and good and evil, honestly.
Absolutely.
And how to overcome it legally. Lawfully
and spiritually.
Very good. So tell us a little bit background, the Board of Supervisors. What's their role in Maricopa County? How many are there? And what are some of the major things in our county that they're allowed to do?
Well, it's going to be kind of shocking to find out that we have a total of 5 different people that are on the Board of Supervisors. And I would refer to them as the UNA party because it does not matter what party they're with. We have 4 Republicans supposedly up there and 1 Democrat. But what I see is one group of individuals voting in lockstep, regardless if it's beneficial for us or not beneficial for us. The agenda items that come across for every single meeting, there's usually at least almost 100 items.
Right.
And they pass them in clumps. You can have a Head Start program thing going with the construction program, and all of these groups get voted into one. So it doesn't make any sense.
So it's sort of like you hear in the federal level on the TV, the omnibus bills, so to speak. It's not exactly the same, but
very similar.
Very similar, because I started going and they'd be like agenda item 1 through 100, and they'll be like, we're going to be on agenda number 8. People will talk about agenda 8, and you get to have your public comments, which is nice of them, I guess, to let us talk about our city and our county. And then they'll say, okay, we're going to take a vote. And they're going to be, they go like agenda item 8 through what they'll look at their sheet. They'll be like through
15. I.
Most
always passes. The only time they don't pass something in all the time that I've been going there is precinct committeemen.
Right. They hold on to those,
one time they literally held it off for almost a full 4 months.
I remember.
4 months. Luckily,
I'm a precinct committeeman already prior to all of them, this sort of stuff happening and slowing down. But our actually applications just went in. So that's something to watch out for, isn't it? They could do this again.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to have to keep an eye out for that.
So the other thing they have the power to do that people may not know that they have the power to do, when they replace the House representative with another House representative, they appointed them. When they replaced the sheriff, they appointed the new sheriff. So they appoint them, they've given that power. And when they vote on an agenda item, they don't have to run it past the governor. When they vote for it, it's a done deal.
They have that much power.
That much power. And they're putting through things like, example, back in January, they approved that Maricopa, when an emergency comes, whether it be weather, whether pandemic, oh, did I say plan? I mean pandemic, things within that category, Maricopa is now assuming full responsibility to act out on this emergency situation. Jerome Davison, who's running for Congress, he's down there and he's challenging them on this. Like, what does that mean? What was it before? What does exactly that mean? So he's standing up for us.
He actually had comments about that.
Yes,
and what
did.
can they do specifically physically to Arizonans?
Yep.
And like exactly,
No
are they
answers.
allowed to shut things down? Are they allowed to force you to do things?
And they're not responding to his emails.
They're not.
And asking, what does that mean? They're not doing that as well.
Something else to follow up on.
Yes.
Really good.
And that's very typical, because for the longest time we had to fight. We had to really push the issue to even be allowed to bring in water.
Right.
Like here it is summertime.
Right.
We walk in the door, the basic, we the people walking through the door, we had to put ours on a table and leave it there.
That's
all the
security.
county workers and the board of supervisors are allowed to be in there with their drinks at any sort and assortment.
Right.
And any container they wanted,
Right.
but we, the people, were not allowed to. We had to push that issue for the longest time. So on the 24th of January, they finally let us be like the other big boys and girls, and we get to have our drinks in there as well.
Now, you've been going down there for a while, Lezley, right?
Correct.
Let's set that tone too, because as much as you know about it, people can get involved really quickly, and not everybody does the hard work, right? And then they kind of just show up, and then they're like in it. And it's a lot of research. Jeff Caldwell, he's here in Phoenix.
Yes.
He's very involved in politics. He's very involved in education. And
He is an
works
incredible
hard.
researcher.
So you get a lot of that information from Jeff.
And Marissa Hamilton.
Yep.
And here's the deal. I just want to say this for all people who, if you care for our county, if you care for our state, what you have to do is identify if somebody is honest and forthright in trying to help protect children, try and protect our rights, and try and protect our election system, well, then the good thing to do is identify what you align with them for and work with that. If somebody is deceptive, if somebody is selfishly ambitious, if somebody is pushing their own agenda, that's very different than somebody who's actually you just have a different opinion with. Because I was just talking to them the other day about what candidates they're supporting that I don't support, but I agree with their decisions and their forthrightness in dealing with the issues that are protection of children. I mean, what's happening in these libraries and what's happening at these schools, at some of the books that these children are being given it's full on pornography. And actually it's ARS 133553 that is being violated. So I say that I interjected because I know some people don't like certain people's personalities, right? Or they don't like where they're, but here's the deal. If I can agree to disagree with you as long as you're being honest to me.
Right. Yes.
If you're being deceitful, I can't even disagree with you because I just don't want to work with you.
Right.
So I don't work with people who have their little agenda behind the scenes. I will not and cannot.
Selfish agendas.
That's it.
Selfish agendas, yeah. As much as I know about Arizona and Maricopa County where I live, I didn't know about this. And there's a lot to learn. And it's intricate because it involves laws and rules and regulations. And there's so many of them in this bubble that the Board of Supervisors gets to manipulate at their will, apparently, that it is really important. If we don't learn anything else about what's happening in our state, we can't get to the House or the Senate hearings, which we can. They're public, by the way. I've been going to those too. This is something we really need in your county. There's 15 counties in Arizona. And wherever you live, this is what you need to find out to be a part of your Board of Supervisors meetings, which are public. And they have different rules. They tweak them to make them the way they want to be, apparently. And we need to come together as a state and try to find ways to work with people like Lezley, to know the legal ins and outs, to come together cohesively within all our counties to push our agenda as we the people. There are written rules, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But they don't follow them necessarily.
No, they do not.
What
they
are
do
some
not
of them?
follow
Tell
their
us.
own policy.
Yeah,
Well, again, they take your water away. That's the Fourth Amendment right being violated. That's a constitutional law being violated. The other thing is their own policy. The policy states their policy that if you were to call and ask for what's the policy if you want to speak there, it will tell you that the agenda item, the slip to speak on the agenda item has to be turned in just prior to the agenda item being called. Well, now what they've done is they did an audible back last year. It was done by Clint Hickman, and he decided that from now on, you have to turn in all speaker slips by 9:45 a.m. Even if you have to sit there for hours for your whole 2 minutes for public speaking, you have to sit through the entire meeting. Mm-hmm. That's an audible that they created. And now they're even ending the meetings early, people sitting there all their hours waiting, and then they end it early because of the MAG meeting, which
other things they need to do that day.
Conflicts of interest in which they're allowing it to schedule over the Board of Supervisors meeting. That is their job. Board of Supervisors is their title. It's also the meeting they should always make the priority, not the one that they go, well, I can fit in this much of it. When it gets to the public speaking, we're probably going to have to cut it short. Or guess what? We'll make up any little situation to go, meeting's ended. So it's very convenient.
When you spoke last time, you were the first up last week. Some of us noticed they started your clock when you were walking. And later they didn't do that subsequently, but they've been running the clock for a while now. Yeah. So I mean,
one time they ran it for 20 seconds into my time, and I said, "Could you start that over?" And he goes, "Well, I'll give it to you at the end." And they did not give it at the end.
20 seconds doesn't seem like a lot, but in 2 minutes.
When you only get 120 seconds,
it's 120.
That is a lot.
Yeah. The ADA thing, I know we've talked about it, American Disabilities Act. A lot of counties, all but I think you said 2 allow for video.
And Maricopa is one of the 2.
Tell us about that.
The American Disabilities Act says that you cannot discriminate from people to be able to have a voice. If you look also at the Constitution, it says it's the Arizona Constitution, says you're supposed to have a frequent reoccurrence to be able to expound upon what you have to say to these people to hold them accountable. So they're violating the American Disabilities Act and the Arizona Constitution when they refuse to allow us to use the webinar during the public comment portion of the meeting. Now, we know that it can work during that meeting because several times it's rare that they're all there. So usually one of them is calling in via webinar. So they're there the whole time. We know that it works because, they've
used it themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these are all issues. These all seem maybe small or minor, but when you think about it, Arizona has a large population of elderly people. Not everybody can drive downtown.
No.
Parking's atrocious.
It is.
And $26 a day to go to the meeting because I just paid it last week. It's $26.
There's no handicap parking anywhere nearby.
Right.
The only garage that's nearby has a parking limitation. In other words, a height limitation with vehicles.
Right.
So one of my friends who actually walks with a cane and has to ride a scooter has to drive even further away from the building to be able to do her civic duty.
Right, yeah, and there's construction in front of that particular building.
That's planned also, just to let you know, deterring us from going down there, whether it be taking our water, making us wait last, being disrespectful, and even not allowing us to have parking nearby. That is all set up to keep us from going down there. Our forefathers had to go through a lot more than what we have to go through, and I think that's where we have to get. We have to remember who established this country, what efforts did they have to take so that we could have this setting that we're speaking about now, and what are we going to do to protect the future generations who are literally being sabotaged by the technicalities and the little lawfare and all the little made up rules, the little decorum, all the stuff that goes against the Constitution. That is where we come into play, that we have to do that today. We are at the place today where we're establishing what our forefathers did back then. Now we need to do it today for the future generations.
So on that note, if you want to save your country, save your state, save your city, save your family, check out
SaveMyFreedom.us.
That's right, another valuable resource.
Yep.
And thanks again. We will be back with another segment of American Perspective with Patriot Mom007 soon. Thank you.
President's former National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
Flynn knew exactly how the system worked. He knew exactly what the intel world had been up to. He understood its funding. They had to get rid of Flynn.
There was a moment where I just felt like I was drowning. And so I'm in there with these other political appointees. They're all supposed to go in there and tell what they believe to be the truth. What they did was they took my my assessment, and they wanted me to change it. And I was like, I'm not changing it.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
President Obama said, but I do have one specific recommendation. Stay away from Michael Flynn. He's bad news.
Over time, instead of being pounded down below the surface of the ocean, we started to fight. I'm now above the surface.
If we lose freedom here, there is no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.